Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to the Reawaken Your Health podcast. I'm excited to have a returning guest, my dear friend Kirstin Carey, who is joining us today to talk about an important word, recharge. And we're going to dive into what does that mean, what is happening coming up, how to help people, and so much more. As you know and may remember, that Kirstin is a certified holistic nutritionist. She's a professional chef. She's a cognitive behavior therapy practitioner. She works on the soul. She's had businesses. She's an entrepreneur. There's so much more. And you can read more about her in the show notes. And we just like to dive in here. How are you doing, Kirsten?
I am doing well. How are you? It's so good to see you again.
Yes, it's so nice. It's been a little while and life is good, but I know you have evolved since we last talked. And um,
Hopefully we all have, but yes.
that's true. That's true. But I know that you are always growing. You're always looking for new ways to help people. You ponder, you think, you strategize, you assess what's going on in the world and what do people need. So I know lately I'm on your email list, so I know kind of what you are working on. And I know this word recharge
Mhm.
has become very important to you. Why don't you explain what's going on? What are you thinking with this word?
Yeah, so thanks for the question. Even since we talked, I'm just completing a neuropsychotherapy class, and I'm trying to just really see more different ways to get in to really help men and women, but women very specifically, because we do have different needs when it comes back to this idea of recharge. But
Mhm.
even just in the last 6 months, I've seen this complete uptick for women, especially for them burning out. And burnout is actually it's a legit diagnosis in the general, conventional medical community. It's actually there's a diagnostic code for burnout.
Oh,
And there's an actual diagnosis for it. So this is more where you get that fatigue of emotional and physical issues that kind of compile into issues like thyroid disorders, exhaustion, which is a different level of fatigue, right? We can't come out of it. We don't know how to come out of it. And a lot of the people that are struggling with it tend to be women that are 35, 40, 45. And there's a lot of like, well, perimenopause, well, menopause, well, you're getting older. There's this kind of like push it to the side and move on. And so this idea of recharge has become what I'm starting to see what my clients need. You're not fixing anything. You're relearning how to
mhm.
manage the energy levels and the resources that we have so that we're not in this burnout stage. We're not pushing beyond. And a lot of us who are more high performers, we get stuff done. We actually learned early on how to push past where our body said, hey, that's too much.
Yeah.
So we need to recharge. And it's this idea of that we need to kind of plug back in, but we need to plug in differently than we ever have before, because some of the standard stuff isn't really working for us anymore. The idea that we can just meditate it away and it's all going to be fine, or you just do some talk therapy and it's going to be all right. A lot of us have learned how to get around those things.
Yeah.
We're smart,
Yeah.
right? We learned how to get around what our body said no. And so you'll see people, and a lot of our clients are athletes. They're women who are at high levels in companies. They're women running their own companies. They're women who have older parents they're dealing with, children that are going off to college. They're dealing with things coming at them from all levels, and they don't know how to recharge because the only thing they know how to do is white knuckle and keep pushing forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's true. When now the words mindset or journaling or even breath work and meditation, they've become so common
Mhm.
that we brush over the meaning and actually implementing.
Yeah.
And people will say, I do that, I try that, I try
Mhm.
that. And so I get where you're coming from. How do we help people differently so that they actually get results?
Exactly. And it's a lot of the same premise, but it's doing it differently for women who learn to push past that line where the body just said, no, not enough. And we're like, no, we even pride ourselves on being able to push past that line.
Yep.
That's like part of our identity.
Yep.
So, how do we deal with that? Because that, in and of itself, is a trauma response.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's exactly. If you think about, we talk sometimes about the nervous system
Mhm.
and this fight or flight state, and then the parasympathetic state, which is the relaxation. And I often mention that there's like this sympathetic state, fight or flight threshold. And we really, like you said, we try to push beyond that and see if we can just push that limit a little bit more, little bit more.
Yeah.
One example I see about it is like this is cold therapy,
Mm.
sitting in ice baths.
Yep.
People do that to push a little bit more so they can handle a little bit more. But as you mentioned, you push and you keep pushing that limits, then all of a sudden you crash down, you crash hard.
Yep.
You
And
get
you
to
crash to the point where your body's like, well, you weren't paying attention before. So I'm going to hit you so hard right now that you can't miss the message.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right. So there's a way to recharge where you're bringing the energy back, you're bringing the resources back, but you're not doing it in a point of fear. You're doing it from more of a point of I don't want to say faith, but that's kind of the better spin, where your body actually goes into one of two places with fight or flight. We go into this fear mode, or we go into this faith understanding, this grounded mode, where
Mhm.
we know we've got the resources we need. We're not pushing beyond. And it's just a different shift. We're taking it from a different place.
Yeah. And when you're looking at helping people recharge, what does that process look like?
Yep. So it's different than it's been before. When we worked with women before, we were working with them typically for a year to really help them move through. We've shifted
Mhm.
where we're starting to work with women in shorter periods of time to help them get beneath the issues that were stopping them, and they needed the full year. And I'm not saying that it's not always a journey. So it's not like there's a day you're like, it's over, I
Yeah.
figured it out, and then I can do all the old things that used to hurt me. It's
Mhm.
a relearning. It's a reset of the central nervous system. It's a reset of the thought process,
Yeah.
a reset of some of the belief systems and what our body was there to do for us and how we were intended to be, our identity connection. There's an identity crisis that needs to get shifted. And so I take the processes that I have and kind of balled them all up and created a system within itself to
Yeah.
use some of the breath work techniques, to use some of the recharge of the central nervous system techniques, to use a lot of these meditation techniques and not try to do them faster, but to do them more specifically and targeted so that we're
Yeah.
very intentional with
Mhm.
how we're doing it. Right. It's not just I learned how to meditate or I'm going to do some yoga. So, I mean, to your point earlier, a lot of times we see a lot of these women that are high performers, they'll go to a yoga class, they'll go meditate, they'll do a breathwork session, and they'll have a breakthrough, or they'll have a moment.
Yeah.
And then they leave, and then they're cursing people on the way home as they're driving home, and they're getting right back into the mindset. So it didn't shift enough at an underlying process to feel safe enough to stay in the peace and the groundedness. So we take an additional piece and say, well, okay, how do you have that moment where you know the shift happened, but how do you carry it forward so you hold it? And it's not just for the moment you're in the class.
Which is important because part of the reason people get to the state that they're in is all the different aspects of their life, work, family, relationships, society. And so, how do you actually integrate it so that it carries forward
Yep.
and so that it's actually implemented so they can have a shift at home and keep very peaceful relationships?
Yeah. Because a
Or-
lot of what got us successful in the first place, a lot of how we got where we are right now are some of the things that are actually trauma responses.
Yeah.
So it actually benefited us to this point to get where we are, but to get to this next level, that same pattern is not going to get us here. It's actually going to slide us backwards. But
Yeah.
there's an underlying belief that it's keeping us safe and it's keeping us successful or keeping us where we are. So there's a piece where we kind of need to break that a little and
Mhm.
then get you into a space where you are able to hold on to the belief and then make it part of who you are, that this next shift, this change is going to be the next piece that's going to keep you safe
Right.
and
Yeah.
protected.
Wow. Now, so I know part of the way that you work with people is you found a great benefit of doing it in a group setting so there's a community. Is this still the same kind of setting and environment where you can do this in a group setting and people are feeding off of each other and helping each other?
Yep. So both. So we do individual as well as group as a combined effort. Because what's really interesting is when we become really good at hiding from ourselves our own underlying challenges, the group setting helps open it up because there's a mirror effect that occurs where you can see it on someone else. You can see their storyline, and it's a lot safer for our subconscious to see it on someone else. And then a reflection starts to occur. And then you can actually heal in a way where you didn't need all of the one-on-one support the same way, because you're healing as you're seeing the storyline happen for someone else. And women do this so well. We do things much more collectively, just as a general rule.
Mm-hmm.
So the collective effort is a really important piece of the story, as well as the individual one-on-one.
Yeah. So one of the questions I have regarding about women, are you looking at women differently than men because of hormones or childcare? And I know men can be just involved in childcare too, but what is it specifically about women that's really grabbed your attention, that you want to focus on them kind of in this kind of aspect for recharge?
We are wired differently. I mean, physically, we're wired differently. Emotionally, we're wired differently. We work together in groups much differently. Again, we're much more of a collective energy. Men are much more of an individual energy. And again, this is not like 100% of all men and 100% of all women, but the general rule. And then we also just socialize differently, right? We heal differently, and we ask for help very differently.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a client last night. It was a man. I got right into something. We could go right for it. We could laser focus on it. We could go for the jugular, and we were in it. We were out of it. We worked through it.
Mm-hmm.
Does really well with one-on-one, not as well as group. The women, they tend to come at it a little differently. We tend to not ask for help the same way that men do. We don't put ourselves first the way that men have, just as a general rule, been taught.
Mm-hmm.
It's just part of who they are. And women just don't. But when we can do it collectively, we can help another sister. We can be all over the needs that they have, and we can help that. But when we can start to see the reflection back, we can collectively raise, kind of like raising the tide to raise all of the boats. Women tend to think that way differently. We energize and vibrate that way differently. So, and yes, the hormone shift is very different. The conversation around our hormone shift is very different. It's still it's coming out of the closet. We are talking about it much more, but there's still this like shadow over women in perimenopause and going into menopause. And we collectively don't talk about it the way that I think that we could, but we want the support. We just don't know where to get it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely a kind of a stigma and a lot of jokes around it. And
Yeah. It's supposed to just happen.
yeah.
And every stage, so there's basically the three phases that women tend to go through. There's this pre-period stage where we're, the pure maiden, as they call it. And there's that stage. And then there's the stage where we're, the mother stage, as they call it, where we're in this bleeding stage. And then there's this, and they call it, the third phase is typically known as the crone stage. Crone. Like, just think about how Disney has ruined that word for us, like what it really means. But I mean, I look at it more as this matriarch, this powerful, I don't want to use queen because that's not it either, but there's this wise wisdom stage is how I see it. And we don't celebrate that. We don't look at the women that we kind of like crumple them up and throw them to the side. And we don't look at the stage and the brilliance of that wisdom stage the way that we could. And we don't know how to step into it with power.
Right.
So that's where a lot of our clients are. They're moving out of this quote mother stage into this, what I call like wise women stage. But how do we do that elegantly and amazingly and empowered? And we're not done. In fact, some of us are just getting started. Like I'm right there. So, and when you get women in that space, it's amazing to be in their energy. And I think we don't talk about that as a society the way we could. We medically don't talk about it the way we could. It's just not as accepted. And that's a lot of the conversation that happens too within our groups.
Yeah. And one other aspect about that is kind of physical health. So often we think of women moving through menopause or perimenopause, and then all of a sudden you're just existing and you're kind of this hormonal mess and physical mess. But instead, why not get you to maybe you go run a marathon? I actually have a client who did her first triathlon in her 60s, and it's like all the power to her. Like, why not just go for it? So as part of your recharge program, I know in the past you've looked at blood work or looked at nutrition. Is that still a component, physical health as well as for this
Absolutely.
recharge?
Yeah, because it's all there. You can't separate them, and unfortunately, conventional medicine kind of separates a lot of these things. It's like we have a mental side of us, we have an emotional side of us, and we have this physical side. It's all one thing, and so we come at it from all the stages. So we are all the pieces, because you can't affect one without impacting the rest. So yes, we have an entire. We go into the science of it, as we like to call it, with the labs and the nutrition and all the pieces there. We go into the nutrition pieces of it as well, because women, nutrition is different for women have different nutritional needs as we continue to change in our different phases as well, and our different needs individually. It's not one diet fits all people.
Mhm.
And what phase are you in right now? What needs do you have nutritionally? How do you need to get that support? And it shouldn't also be so many supplements that you're full by the time you finish your supplements. There's all these pieces to it. And then there's the emotional, what I like to call the soul part of this. And it's more of that spiritual, emotional side of who we really are. And that also shifts and changes with us as we continue to be more wisdom oriented.
Yeah.
So we come at it from all sides to help you pull as many of the threads as possible to open up as many opportunities as possible in the shortest period of time.
That's great. That sounds wonderful. And I know coming up, you have an actual event.
I do. Thank you for asking.
Why don't you
So
tell
it
us a
happens to
little
be
bit?
called Recharge. It's a 2-day in-person event, and that's actually, I think, the most important part of it. It's in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm so excited to be doing in-person events again. You know, we went online with our program a while ago, and then when COVID hit, we just kind of stayed only online, and we did some retreats for our, current clients, but we stopped doing the in-person events. And women especially, we vibrate differently when we're in the room physically with each other. So we're going back to some of these in-person events. So the next one we have is October 25th and 6th. It's called Recharge. It's 2 days. It's for women who just frankly don't have the luxury of burning out. They don't have the time, the energy, they can't spend the money to burn out. They're just like, no, I don't have the luxury of having this happen. My body can't get to this point. So we're trying to cut that off before they get there. And even if they have stepped into many of the symptoms of it, you can come back from it. So am I saying 2 days is going to fix all the things? No, but it's going to start the process, give you the information you need so you understand it mentally and you understand it from an emotional, physical standpoint too. And you have tools so that you know what you're doing, and you come out of that event totally feeling it, understanding it, stepping over into a whole new phase of this.
Oh, that's wonderful. So what does the event look like? Is it all day? Is food provided? People always like to know. I
Yes,
would
yes,
expect
yes.
from you food would be involved.
Course, I need to have my fingers in the food all the time. I mean, not literally, but yes. So it's a Friday, Saturday. It's 10
Okay.
to 4 on both days. There is a special event that's occurring Friday night. If people choose, it's not part of the event, but we've kind of circulated it around the event. But yes, we're providing lunch on both days. We have a chef brought in for this. We have a special event space that we brought in just for this, and it's a very limited space. And we already have a lot of the tickets are gone, so it only holds 50 people. And we're trying to keep it intimate on purpose so that we can get more done in less time. And that's why it's only 2 days. But it should be amazing. It's also in a spot in Scottsdale that's so easy to get to. It's 15 minutes from the airport. We have a bunch of women flying in. Some of them are driving in, some of them are local. But I'm super excited about this because we're taking a lot of what worked online and what used to work with our in-person events, and we're just dialing it up to get in there and really get women in a space where they have a shift that really occurs. That's the whole goal. So they can also then take what they're learning and take it back to their real lives so that they can continue this. I don't want them just to have a 2-day cool event. I want them to have a 2-day amazing event that then they can shift something so that they're carrying this and pulling this forward. So it's not just lost.
Oh, that's wonderful. Will it be interactive, experiential, or more didactic? Like
Yes,
what do
so experiential,
people
so very
expect?
immersive.
Okay.
Lots of interaction. It's gonna, and we're being also we're paying attention. There's forms people are filling out ahead of time, so we know a lot more detail about women before they come in. So I get to do a lot of the pre-work to make sure we are tailoring it exactly to the people that are going to be there, so that it's even more effective for this people who are here. And I've already we're getting the tickets coming in already. The forms are being filled out, and it's women who want to get stuff done. They don't have the time or the energy, the wherewithal to burn out. They've got a lot of other stuff that they're paying attention to, and they want to make this happen. And they're high-powered women who typically get stuff done anyway, but they know they've hit a line. They've started to hit a wall. They know that this can't continue on the direction that it is, whatever's happening for them. So
Yeah.
you will be amongst friends. Let's put it that way.
Good. And I know just from personal experience of knowing some of your clients, a lot of the women become very close, very close-knit friends, even if they're farther away, different states, they still become very close and connected. And that's important. Very
It's
important.
so powerful. And what's so cool is when we get to do in-person events, and when we do client retreats, what's so neat is that there's just an understanding that you kind of hit a level of conversation where you kind of almost start here. Where you don't have to kind of do this, and it's not as awkward as a lot of the other kind of conversations that you have with people you've never met before, because you already know each other in a different way because you're struggling or challenged with a lot of the similar things. So the oh my God, you get me piece comes through so fast, and that's what so much of us are struggling with. We don't feel seen, we don't feel heard, we don't feel people understand us, we feel isolated sometimes.
Yeah.
Our people, our families, sometimes they just don't get us the same way. But this is a community of women who they just get it.
Yeah. Yeah. You step into something you're already connected with 50 other women.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Quickly.
neat.
And
Yeah.
why we can get more stuff done in a shorter period of time, because we don't have to do a lot of the basics. We get into a foundational level that's a much higher level than what a lot of other people have experienced in other things that they've done to this point.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, this is great. So how do people sign up?
That is a great question too. So they can it's pretty simple. They can go to nourish123challenge.com.
Okay.
The landing page will give you all of the information that you need. If you are flying in, the second you register, all of the details about where and when and which airports and where we're going to be and all of that drops in. So you get all of those things, some suggestions on places to stay. Where we're having the event is so easy to get to that quickly I did a search, and there were 17 within walking distance places to stay, whether it was Airbnb, hotel, motel, like right there. And to me, walking distance was 3/4 of a mile or less. So I'll give you an idea of where I was going with walking distance.
Yeah.
But they're not like city streets, like you're not in New York. But
Yeah.
there's places to eat. There's the food also, as you asked before I meant to say this, it's all going to be automatically gluten-free, dairy-free. We have all the plant-based options you would need as well. So you don't have to worry about that, but we are asking additional questions about food sensitivities and allergies so that we at least know about them.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about related to the event or how you're helping people?
Oh, no, I think we nailed a lot of this stuff. I'm just so excited about the in-person component to this again, because that's how we used to do things. And I started noticing a shift in just me as a practitioner, really just not having that in person. I mean, this is great. And of course, we love this. And it opens us up to work with so many people in so many different cities and countries, actually. But that in-person thing, you can't deny there is a shift that occurs that's so much more powerful. So
It is, you can't replace a hug.
you can't, but you can't even replace the energy of being there. And I do energy work, so I get that it still works this way, but it's just being in the same room with people who get you and understand you and are challenged with a lot of the similar things, who are learning alongside of you. Collective energy of learning, it's exponential.
Different level, but this is great. Okay, so what's the website one more time?
So it's nourish123challenge.com. All of the details you should need. But if for some reason you still have a question that is not answered there, you can always go to support at nourish123.com.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you so much for joining us today. It
Thanks
is
for having me.
wonderful to see you. You look great. I'm glad that you are continuing to evolve, learn new things, and helping more people. So everyone, please take advantage. I know their price for this event is very, very inexpensive, very reasonable, almost too reasonable. So it is definitely affordable, and you're going to be taken well care of. So please reach out to Kirstin, go to the website and join her event because I know it will be great. She always does everything of high quality. So thanks so much.
We have some extra special guests and people that are coming in that are not even talked about on the website. So it's
Ooh.
going to be super fun the whole time.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again, everyone. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next week. Bye now.